Welcome everyone to the Minions of the Zoo. And it's going to be a sausage festival tonight. I have one entire minion with me. Harry from the Harry channel, or the man who is the Harry channel.
Yes.
And he is joining me tonight here in glory and comfort as we trundle into broadcast excellence for another chapter of Minions. How you doing, Harry?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Roof doesn't leak anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody's shooting at me. IRS didn't show up at my door to just make sure there wasn't some mistaken communication. Go over some things.
You just go over some things on the day you testify before Congress.
Well, I'm kind of running late. I need to head to Capitol Hill to testify. Well,
we got a couple of irregularities here.
Since we've got an extra $80 billion, this is part of our new concierge service that we offer,
right?
Where an agent just shows up at your door and offers to help.
Outreach hosing.
Yeah, this is your tax dollars at work. It's the IRS, but with a more personal touch.
That really has to be the most significant. The thing about it is that this is how old style Democrats play politics. That's what Biden is doing. Biden didn't go to Republican country up there in Ohio when they had the derailment. There was nothing for him up there. And the way that he looks at it, those aren't my people. He really, truly does. Biden has shown this, in spots all through his career. And you talk about a guy who has failed up even more than his own vice president. I would submit that Joe Biden is one of the most massive cases of failing up in the history of our country. And we've had a few.
Mm-hmm. What is it about Joe? Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about politics that just, collects these irredeemable losers?
Well, I think we're forgetting. I think many people are forgetting something. And that is, they thought when they were trying to decide who was going to be the front runner, that nobody was going to be able to beat Trump because the economy was just too good.
Mm-hmm.
He was there taking one for the team. And only because of the pandemic and the leaning in from the media,
oh my God!
Did they manage to actually pull this thing off?
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Well, now the Democrats have a thorny problem indeed. They have an crazy old coot who may not be in as much control as they thought he was, and with an even crazier and more ambitious wife who wants him to stay in power. I don't think the Bidens are going anywhere. I think, and with Jill telling him he can win, I think he'll be the nominee, and he may well be running against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, if he goes in and says, I'm going to be the Republican nominee, I don't think there's a Republican who could stop him.
That is true. However, it's going to be interesting. There's a few unknowns here that we can't quite anticipate, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody in the Democrats breaks ranks and somebody who's credible, right, who's a credible candidate, I think given the really low support that Biden has for a re-election run, even within his own party, it's way under 50% last I heard. It was something like 28%. I'm just pulling a number. This is sort of what I think the number was I heard this morning. Okay,
that's all you Democrats. Would your candidate be Joe Biden?
Yeah. So
that's that kind of number. I think that's that kind of number. So when the question is, the Republican nominee is Donald Trump, would you prefer to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, Mr. Democrat? I'll bet that number goes way, way up.
Well, it does go way up, but do you really think that Biden going into a second term is going to be preferable to Hillary? Because I could see Trump potentially winning this. But this isn't me. This isn't just some sort of wishful thinking thing.
Why are you thinking Hillary? You think Hillary could step in?
It's just by comparison. I'm just using the.
He has to step out.
I'm just doing A is greater than B, B is greater than C, ergo A is greater than C. I'm just thinking of this from a formal logic. I'm thinking that second term Biden is not preferable to first term Hillary.
Oh.
In the minds of most Democrats, I think.
Oh, in the minds of most Democrats. Oh,
yeah, his minds, his
mental faculties are separated.
But then again, we've reached the point where the dead naming of a school shooter was considered to be the thing that was truly offensive in that mess. So. I don't know. I don't know what reality is anymore, Skep.
We are going to have to talk about the shooting, and I think we're going to have to talk about who the real victim is there.
Common sense is the real victim.
Yeah, it's. Well, I was about to say,
or common decency.
Thanks for taking my punchline. But yes,
sorry. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, no, exactly right.
Well, I mean, we don't need to pivot quite so quickly. It's just that there's only a handful of obvious things that happen today, right? There's the Matt Taibbi thing.
Right.
There's Joe Biden just
being Joe Biden.
Just being Joe Biden and. And of course, whatever passes for the deep state gets to be extra deep because there's really nobody guiding the rudder, right? So it's entirely conceivable to me that Joe Biden had nothing to do with that IRS agent showing up. They just decided independently that it was a good idea. It was just, this is what we do, while we're circling the wagons, we're just going to do this.
Oh, I see that as maybe a mid-level bureaucrat at the IRS saying, hey, I can make a little bit of name for myself, and this is within this program that we have of going out to see these people. So let's just make sure that Mr. Matt Taibbi gets a visit from one of our outreach agents on this particular day. That's what I think probably actually happened.
Yeah.
So, the follies continued. Speculation about the presidential run. It's interesting stuff. I really do think, unfortunately for the Republicans, that the nominee will be Donald Trump, and I just don't see a lot of Republican talent I love. I thought DeSantis might have something going for him, but the more I hear him talk, the more he sounds like just another Republican politician.
Well, the Republicans, to put a little criticism on the Republicans, and this is like all Republicans for the most part, like 90% of them really are engaged in kind of small tent thinking. And by that I mean, anytime you hear them talk about somebody, there's always maybe, but, and then they start listing all the reasons why they don't like that person. It's never enough to just be good enough. We seem to be really hung up on somebody being absolutely free of flaws. Like, I'm not like a huge fan of Nikki Haley, except that I've always thought that she was ultimately going to make a run and be electable. And everybody in the chat right now, I'm not looking at chat at this very second, is probably going, oh, Nikki Haley's wet, she's a rhino, she's this, she's that, and they're listing off all the reasons why Nikki Haley's probably terrible, right? But do we do this with every single candidate? There's not one of them that's pure enough or good enough or whatever, and it really is just that the perfect is the enemy of the good. I would be perfectly happy to have a competent B- Republican president who cut back on, put the brakes on the spending a little bit and brought some sanity back. I don't need this next person to be perfect. I just need them to be good enough. And do
you think somebody like DeSantis could be that good?
Well, I don't know, but the point is, the more we tear each other apart in this search for perfection, I think the more we make sure we're never going to get even that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, me with my right of center, centrism talking, right? So maybe I'm wrong. If you listen to a lot of people who get paid money to have these opinions, they'll say, well, you don't win by being lukewarm. You have to give them a real alternative.
Yeah.
I think not having diversity, inclusion, equity, not doing all this stuff. There's so many things you could do that are just moderate policies that would make everything so much better than they are right now. I don't need perfection. There isn't a Republican out there that in my mind is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that I'm just going to do a protest vote and, vote for the Libertarian, which I might just do anyway because I'm in California and my vote doesn't count. So I have the luxury of knowing that my vote for president doesn't mean jack.
There's that. And
yeah,
that's a good point. I look at who I want for president. We do too. Read chat, assassin. Shut up.
Well, I'm just not looking at it right this second.
Yeah. God's sake.
But on a serious note, a little inside baseball. I find that it's actually, when I started out doing this, it wasn't that easy for me to talk on these streams. And one of the things I do is when I'm actually trying to concentrate, I will literally just look at the microphone. I will not look at chat. I won't do anything. If I try to multitask, I just stumble over my own words.
Yep.
And I didn't have any of this planned. I'm literally just thinking on the fly. And, if I'm wrong, I'm more than happy to be talked out of this position. This isn't some heartfelt position that I've had that's near and dear to me. This is just a thought that's in my mind right now as I'm talking to my friend Skep.
Good basic common sense. And I agree with you. The way that I evaluate people for president is how good a manager are they? How good are they at taking a lot of different kinds of process? What kind of creativity do they have, and managerial ability and experience do they have? Experience is a big deal in handling a job where things come at you fast and you can't whiff on anything. How are you at that kind of a job? And I see precious little talent running for president that has a lot of that kind of experience. Although there is a lot of that experience out there, it's hard to find and it's expensive. It's more expensive than the presidency pays to get really top-notch talent. You can find top-notch managerial talent. It is out there. You would have to hire it out of an industry, but you could get somebody really, really good. And really good managers, imagine if you were a decent manager and you were in Kamala Harris's position where you had, been elevated to vice president of the United States, and somebody said, go get a hold of this border situation. You've got carte blanche and the power of the office of the president's behind you. Go for it. See what you can do to make progress. I can think of 100 things that I would have set in motion within the first 48 hours of getting that order from the president. Some of which would have been to make some noise and show people that I was doing something about this. And then I would have gotten my ass down there. That was the big thing. This is just an example of how pathetically bad the people are at management and at problem solving, problem handling, problem addressing. And these are ostensibly the leaders of the political process of our nation, supposedly our commander-in-chief. Our commander-in-chief has the army squalling about white rage while, our readiness degrades by the day. I'm quite concerned about the readiness of our armed forces. And this is a failure of leadership, and it's a failure of leadership for years and years and years. It's failure of leadership by both Republicans and Democrats. I actually had hopes for Trump. When he first came in, I had hopes that, hey, this guy is not owned by anybody. But it turned out he was owned by his own ego and spent as much time huffing and puffing and himself up as he did following good, sensible policy, which some of his policy initiatives were good and sensible. Yeah, he was. I finally got tired of having my heart broken by the guy, and decided he was a nut, and that we need a better candidate. We're not going to get it from the Democrats. We're not going to get a liberty-loving patriot from the Democrats. I don't know. It's no solutions here.
Well, I mean, there are Democrats in the past who I've given a little bit of money to just because I wanted the Democrats to have a better candidate that they were running. Because as I see it, if the Republicans aren't going to win, at least we could hope for the best Democrat possible. Again, you know, this is my centrism talking.
Yeah.
They don't make a habit of giving money to Democrats. It's pretty rare.
There are lists you want to be on, comrade.
It
was most wise.
Well, I'm trying to remember who the guy was that originally got into this whole hush money campaign thing. It was John Edwards, wasn't it? Who was it? The case that he basically. It wasn't John Edwards. Who was it?
John Edwards got nailed for bailing on his love child, and all that sorted.
Okay, I'm not thinking of John Edwards. I'm thinking of another guy. There was another one
that got into what? Tell me.
I don't remember. There was another Democrat which I thought was not so bad. What? I don't remember, Skep. I would tell you if I remember.
A Democrat who wasn't so bad. Okay.
Who wasn't so bad. And there's been a few of them sort of back east. Every now and then, you'll hear about, there were just a handful of them, usually former military guys, people who actually have some amount of management skills. I think Trump, for the most part, I'm going to give him, I think, a fair hearing here. He did a lot of good in terms of cutting down on regulation. I think that his business first attitude was extremely helpful and something actually we would benefit from greatly, considering how badly Biden and the Democrats are screwing the pooch on the economy. I don't think his ego aside, I don't think that he's necessarily the worst candidate, not even by a long shot. I would definitely take him over 4 more years of Biden. That's not. I don't even have to think about that very hard.
You would take Trump over 4 years of Biden.
Over 4 more years of Biden. Yeah,
I would too. But it would be,
if that was my choice. That's not even hard.
Reluctant choice. It would be a reluctant choice, but it would be unmistakable. 4 more years of Biden. Our economy really is. We are looking at some long-term inflation that really could change our standing in the world. It should change the standing of the dollar in the world. Really,
it's already happened. It's already happened.
It's happening. It's happening.
No, it's already happened. The Chinese already made a deal with some people. I think it was Saudi Arabia. And it was Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia who got into some deal fairly recently while we were busy obsessing over things that don't particularly matter. There was an agreement where I guess the Russians are able to use Chinese money instead of American dollars for petroleum purchases or something. I can't remember the details. But there's nothing about any of those words in combination that I like.
Well,
we're just not the peacemakers anymore. It was a meeting
where Saudi Arabia considered accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. And here's what happens if they accept the yuan, because here's what Saudi Arabia is saying. Saudi Arabia says, we want to do all the business, all of your business. And China says, well, we'd love to buy your oil, but we buy it in yuan. Yuan is becoming a more accepted, the external yuan, not the internal yuan. Remember that there's 2 yuans. One is circulated internationally, and one is circulated internally in China. They're 2 separate currencies.
Well, the internal one is practically it's not fiat; it's faith-based.
It's faith-based, 100%. it's an absolute. It's an absolute cryptocurrency gone wild.
It's a complete fantasy.
Fiction.
I mean, as
it's
opposed to
fiction currency, right?
Yeah.
Even more than the dollar is. So what the Chinese are going to Saudi with a bunch of spreadsheets that say, look, inflation for the yuan internationally is less than the dollar, which it is right now. So you should be happy to take our yuan, which is rapidly being accepted internationally. The Saudi, that's a temptation for the Saudis. They want to trust the yuan, but they're scared, and they should be scared.
They should be petrified.
They should be, but it's so succulent and delicious. All this potentially worthless paper that's being offered them by Beijing. It's interesting to see the two scorpions stinging each other here.
Can we interest you in a debt swap?
Your worthless paper for my worthless paper.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, we
We'll lock them in a drawer where it's dark and nobody can see, and maybe magic will happen. It's
yeah.
When they just get together. But you understand what I'm saying. I think that Biden's already done the damage. The fact that these conversations are even taking place. I wanted to circle back, as Peppermint Patty would say, to what you originally were talking about. I was very impressed with Mike Pompeo. Now, and I don't particularly like heads of oil companies, but I have to say that his judgment, his work ethic, and his ability to sort of make decisions and get shit done, dealing with a guy like Trump as your boss, that's not...
He's morally a much better man than Trump is.
But I mean, trying to keep him and Trump and his ego kind of under control, managing. Right. Okay, he was managing upwards the whole time he was there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just the definition of managing upwards. So this is me being critical of Trump and saying good things about Pompeo. That's
high praise coming from you, because I know that you spend half your time managing upward. I know you spend a lot of your effort managing upward.
Well, actually being on these shows has made me worse. Running my show. Well, yeah, I noticed about 6 months after I started streaming a lot, I would go into meetings, and if there was dead air and nobody was taking responsibility, I would just take over the meeting. It didn't matter. It didn't matter who it was. It could be the CEO and founder of a publicly traded company. Okay, it didn't matter who was in the room. If the conversation ground to a halt, I would just start saying, trying to rephrase things to make sure that it was
rescue the stream.
just to rescue the stream, and I'd start assigning action items, especially to people who didn't show up. Let's give this to this person. That's their punishment for not being here. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a win-win for everybody, because I got shit to do.
Yeah.
And I'm actually lucky. Most of my customers are pretty good people. I mean, I'm not telling them something they don't already know much of the time. It's just that being really organized and kind of fair and forceful and stuff, it's just, you need somebody to run the meeting. I can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I didn't do it before, but I've gotten much worse since I started streaming.
I was going to say, I've been this way since 1975. I've been this way. If some group of people lacks organization and I time out, I'll take over whatever organization that is and start organizing them. And if somebody has a strong preference and wants to take over, I'll usually step aside. But otherwise, I'll end up being in charge of it. If I've wound up inheriting a lot of interesting enterprises that way.
Yeah. I mean, I just want the stuff to get done. I don't particularly have to be the one to do it. So it's only if the conversation sort of flags and it feels like we're not getting something done that I'll step in, and if somebody wants to take it over again afterward, I'm happy handing the baton back. But if there's a room full of people, did I tell you about what they used to do at the design firm IDEO?
No.
Did you hear this story?
Well, I remember it. I remember that.
You remember them. So what they used to do, this was like back in the 90s when they came up with this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a badge, right? So you'd have your little badge, and they would have a RFID thing in the badge. They'd use it for the door scanners and stuff. And somebody got the bright idea of, we spend too much time jerking each other off in meetings, and that's expensive. So when you'd go in, you would basically put your badge near something to sort of clock in this display in the center of the table. And what it did was it went into the payroll system, figured out how much you make per hour, and then it would add that to a running total for the meeting that would be displayed in front of everybody. So you got like a national debt counter thing showing how much money was being spent by the people in that room during the course of that meeting.
I remember
possibly the greatest idea of all time.
That is just an amazing idea. Now, anybody who's had a course in cost accounting knows that most cost accounting is a miracle that happens in your own mind. There are a lot of decisions you have to make in cost accounting that don't necessarily reflect a realistic spreading of cost. But in terms of all of this, do you see a guy like Mike Pompeo emerging as having enough chutzpah and personality to head up a major ticket?
That's a very good question.
He's too boring.
I think people would be okay with boring. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons why people like Biden. One of the things they like about him is that he's not Trump.
Right.
With Trump, it was like every other day there was like some kind of, he'd start talking about whatever his Popeil pocket fisherman of the day idea was,
Yeah,
and
exactly. That is a great characterization.
During the pandemic, right. I remember when they started showing like the test kits and the ventilators and stuff, and he really looked like an awkward person at a trade show, trying to, because that's sort of the world he was in. I think, to be fair, he was put in a position that most presidents have not had to experience. I mean, Bay of Pigs, there have definitely been some real challenges for a lot of presidents. But for a guy who had organizational skills and kind of a philosophy, but no real relevant government experience, I think the pandemic was a bit much for him. And it brought out the worst in his Trumpiness.
It brought out the most Trump-esque parts of his Trumpiness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being put under pressure like that, it's not a good look for. It's not a good situation for a guy like Trump. I was not. Trump never changes in how he handles things, from what I can tell. It's all, give me some winners to solve this problem for me. That's kind of his approach to everything. And he just wants the winners. He's not that smart really about anything. He's got reasonably good instincts in business, but mostly he just throws a bunch of shit up against the wall and sees what sticks, and collects what he's smart enough to collect what sticks, and he's smart enough to work hard and throw a lot of shit against the wall. And he doesn't have any interest except his work. He doesn't take time off. He's 100% devoted 100% of the time, and expects that. There are good things about Trump. He should be better than what he is, but his ego cripples him. That's his. Ben Shapiro calls it good Trump and bad Trump. and that's a useful way to look at it. I think that I finally just had to say, his obnoxious personality notwithstanding, I'm going to look at what he does from a policy standpoint and just try and ignore the nonsense. And it's kind of quaint. Back then I thought, boy, I'll be glad when this nonsense is over. Well, be careful what you wish for there, Skep Tock, because you got President Joe Biden, who is he's non-compass menace as far as I can tell. That's not a fit mind to lead our country.
No.
And a party that consents to that, knowingly consents to that, and they are complicit. They are actively complicit in this. By that act alone, they take themselves out of running as a party with any integrity and with having enough integrity to satisfy me to run our country. So there's no possibility I would vote for a Democrat. There are no decent Democrats anyway. But my problem is there's no decent Republicans either, really. Pompeo's an interesting guy. He's a good guy. If if he was an inspiring leader, he might be able to get it done. But he's overmatched by giving a simple speech.
I don't know about that. I think he is in command of the facts and figures in a way that a lot of American politicians aren't. Okay, that's not very nice. First of all, Skip.
Well, no, I'm just talking about his manner.
I know, but I honestly think I think
I'm being unfair.
I think you're being a little okay. I was joking because comparing anybody to Mitt Romney is just
it kind of sucks. I just
but
in terms of
the comparison I would actually draw is if you look at Spudgun in the chat. I don't see.
You haven't seen Spudgun tonight.
Okay, so he's not. I don't have to worry about offending Spudgun, but in a lot of ways, I really like some of the English politicians in the following way, and for the following reason. Mm-hmm. Well-educated, in command of the facts. You never get the sense that they're, you often don't get the sense that they're just an empty suit. I mean, we're not leaving Diane Abbott in charge. I mean, say what you will about Boris Johnson. He's not an idiot.
Yeah, no,
not an idiot. Guy. The same thing with a lot of their politicians, very much in command of the facts. Why can I not remember the goofy-looking, tall, skinny git who's like one of the real conservatives there? Why can I not remember his name? Probably because I'm trying to recall it.
Are you
the very posh guy, the Tory? Why can I not remember his name? I mean, I only subscribe to his stupid channel and watch a bunch of his content.
Jacob Rees-Mogg?
Yeah, Jacob Rees-Mogg. I don't necessarily need them to be, rocket surgeons, but I at least want them to have a command of the facts and preferably maybe some understanding of history. And
how do you find about Rees-Mogg? Wait a minute, he's my guy. He's my.
I spent a bunch of time over in the Britbong part of YouTube. Actually, that's actually where I met Prospero and got dragged over here. Was over on a channel from a guy named Not So Obvious. And the very first stream I was ever on was on Academic Agent's channel. And I had never been on a stream, and there were like 800 people watching this thing. I mean, talk about baptism by fire. And suddenly he decides that since I'm the American, he's going to start asking me about New York State tax law, because this was at the same time as AOC was busy screwing up the whole Amazon deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, this did not go well because I was a combination of not knowing what I was doing, being kind of nervous, and being put on the spot just immediately, like being in a room surrounded by all British people. And like, I'm supposed to know everything about all 50 states tax law. But anyway, though I digress. Jacob Rees-Mogg is a really interesting guy. And I see in Pompeo a rare quality in a lot of the American people like that is that he has a mastery of all the facts. You don't get the sense that he only can speak to things where he's handed a briefing. You don't get the sense that he's just coached. He actually knows
he does not
something about something. Well, he has binders and he consults them and stuff, but he internalizes the information. It isn't just cramming for an exam, by reading the binder on the way to the meeting.
No.
He actually knows shit, and it's committed to memory, and he understands the way the facts work together.
Yes, exactly. Everything Corinne Jean-Pierre does not do.
Yeah. And so, again, I'm not a big fan of oil company executive type guys, but the guy has the skills.
Yeah.
He knows how to do all of the things. So, I mean, if somebody knows something about Mike Pompeo that makes him completely not qualified, let me know. But right now, if we're playing fantasy baseball, I'm throwing him on the team.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is that he has not come out publicly with a statement of support surrounding the use of alternative pronouns.
That's true. He also didn't, I don't think he put out a statement talking about how offended he was about the dead naming of that school shooter either. You know what's great about that school shooter being in that protected class, which we probably shouldn't even say because I don't want Susan to get mad at me.
We got to be careful.
We got to be really careful is that because by definition, somebody in that protected class cannot suffer from any other sort of mental problems that are, there. We know this person was absolutely sane, which makes me wonder what was the real motive, right? Because mental illness has been ruled out.
No, but I think reaction to situational oppression. Clearly, this individual felt trapped and was not being sufficiently recognized and given things.
Yeah.
If we had given this person more things faster, we have to give people all the things fast enough. And this person did not get enough things fast enough. That's really the key area.
Well, I mean, all kidding aside.
All kidding aside.
Going back to the DSM-4, I know this makes me a terrible racist, but if you talk about gender dysphoria, the thought that somebody who has gender dysphoria should not be looked at for other possible things that might be causing them problems, right? By essentially the way we're treating this when we say psychologists are only allowed to do the following things. I'm not talking about shocking people or conversion therapy or anything stupid like that, but it's almost like the way the system is set up now, it precludes healthcare people from actually looking at anything else once a diagnosis of gender dysphoria has been, or whatever it's called in the DSM-5. I'm sorry, I'm old, I'm a dinosaur, I apologize if I'm using the wrong words, but you understand what I'm trying to say. As soon as gender becomes one of the factors, it's as if they're not allowed to even talk about anything else that might be going on, as if there's only one thing that this person might need help with. Because I think they're afraid that if they look at anything else, they'll be accused of some kind of hate crime and lose their medical license, which they probably will.
Here's the fear that a certain faction of our society, I think, feels about this. This mentally unstable, clearly, person.
No.
Shoots up a school. Now, if you shoot up a school, you're mentally unstable. Period. Dot. I don't care.
I don't know if we're going to get in trouble.
I don't care what you are. No. I will never try and excuse something like that on the basis of anything.
I'm really worried about a YouTube crackdown. I got to tell you. But go on. We'll come back to that after you're done.
Yeah. So the problem, all kidding aside, the problem I think that people are anticipating is that people will say, "Oh, this guy is, a sufferer of gender dysphoria, and there's some connection between that in particular and shooting up a school," which is not fair to anybody and certainly not accurate. there's a paranoid fear on the left that of anything to be said against anyone who is identified as one of their preferred pets, and one of their preferred pets did something absolutely reprehensible, beyond the pale, beyond any reasonable person's ability to tolerate or forgive. And that cognitus is just more than I think a lot of these people are prepared to deal with. And so they immediately go to general quarters level 5 as soon as they're confronted with, hey, don't you think that guy shooting up the school was a bad idea? Oh, you're blaming his gender dysphoria. You know,
Sorry about that.
There's a part of society that feels that way. You know, they're just, they're paranoid about saying anything against somebody with gender dysphoria as though that were relevant. I don't think this guy's gender problems had anything to do with him shooting up the school. In point of fact, I think he had, or she, or it, or whatever the pronouns were. I don't know how that works. But this creature shot up, 9-year-old kids.
Yeah.
9-year-old kids. You're shooting 9-year-old kids.
Well, there's a ton of red meat to be had here because, I hear some of the things that are being bandied about things that this shooter was muttering at the time. And depending on the orientation of the news agency involved, everybody's sort of fixated on one part or another of this story. They're just trying to grab a piece of it that doesn't make them recoil, right? So
right.
CNN views 3/4 of this story as being off limits. So it's really just a discussion about how evil guns are because they enable people to do things they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. It's a force multiplier.
Yeah.
The gun did it. The gun did it.
The gun walked in there and shot all those people. Well, there's always a gun there. Yeah, there's always a person there too. And it's actually the person who makes all the decisions about using the gun. The gun's a tool. Yeah, if they had done this with an ice pick, you'd be wanting to ban those. They're sharp and dangerous and scary looking, just like a gun.
Did you go on the Twitter today?
A little, not much. What?
Okay, Carlin.
I saw Taibbi was.
Yeah, Carlin Borsenko was making her little comment about how she was saying that 2 years ago she was basically implying that people with mental problems shouldn't be allowed to have firearms, and then people were in her comments going, shall not be infringed, all capitals. It's like, well, it's nice to see we're having a nuanced conversation. It's like, Carlin, if you want, if I happen to be in the same city as you, be happy to sit down and help you understand the way people work. I could pretty much break this down for you. The reason people say things like that is because the part that's implicit is according to who. Right. We don't trust you to do a competent, honest job of deciding who needs to be red flagged.
Right.
No, but I don't think anybody, even the staunchest First Amendment person, thinks that literally homicidal, criminally insane people should just be able to go out and have access to stuff like this, any more so than I would want somebody who is completely incompetent to drive running around driving, right? I mean, it's the same general thing. We just know enough not to trust you when you phrase it in the following fashion.
Yep.
Right? That's why these people were jumping down your throat. It's because we know what the game is. We're wise to that sort of stuff. So simply phrasing it in a provocative way, like, well, you wouldn't want blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, actually, we want you to kind of get off our dick, about this stuff. Well, we have so many problems, and it's like, it's a problem when people do stuff like this, but it raises a lot of other questions, like, how was this person able to get inside? Why wasn't there any security? How long did it take from the moment they breached the perimeter to, the first person being the first casualties, right?
Yeah.
You know, what could we have actually done? And clearly, they did a much better job than Uvalde. Those guys got in there and they dealt with the shooter. They didn't give him a 1 hour, like it wasn't like a 1 hour shopping spree type thing.
No, they heard shots and they went toward the shots.
They did that. How many casualties are we looking at here?
I think there were 3 adults and 3 children killed.
I mean, that's obviously 6 too many, but I think if it was the Uvalde police, it would have been, you know, the whole 30. Student population probably.
Yeah, he had a bunch. He had plenty of ammunition to do a lot more harm than.
But we could probably do even better.
He, she, or it did.
They.
Is it they? Is that?
I don't know. It's just the shooter is what I'm sticking with.
I'm going to ask Google, what pronouns should I use for the shooter at Nashville? Audrey Hale. What we know about little Audrey. Happy at last. Hale's parents, who lived with the shooter, said Hale was under a doctor's care for an emotional disorder, quote unquote. Nashville Police Chief John Drake said at a news conference Tuesday. The shooter had various writings and maps of the school as well as drawings of how to enter. Maybe he was just interested in different kinds of doors, or she, or it, or whatever. Police know that Hale left home Monday morning with a red bag, and Hale's mother did not know weapons were inside because Hale's mother is perfect. And authorities continue, blah, blah, blah. The shooter sent a message to a former classmate before the shooting. Hale sent an eerie Instagram message to somebody else, a former basketball teammate, who told CNN's Don Lemon that she's still trying to process it all. I knew her. Okay, so her is out. So I guess it's she. I knew her well when we were kids. Patton told Lemon on CNN. Patton, now a Nashville radio host, said she hadn't had a relationship with the suspect since they were children and has only ever referred to Hale as Audrey or she. I didn't know the adult. I don't know that side of her. Patton told Lemon when asked about the suspect. Sounds like this suspect has been a loner for a long time if they're going back to just children who knew this person.
Yep.
And it says, Patton said she received the Instagram message at 9:57 a.m., which read, "One day this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen." Man.
I bet the Unabomber's manifesto was a lot more interesting. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I don't know. It's quiet and shy, so forth and so on. Hale graduated from Nassau College of Art and is a college grad in Nashville last year. The school's president confirmed to CNN. A LinkedIn profile says Hale worked as a freelance graphic designer and a part-time grocery shopper.
Yeah, but you know who else was a failed artist? Just saying.
Yeah, that's true. My art career never really got off the ground. Should have stuck with landscapes.
Well, it's easy to armchair about all this stuff. I'm glad that it wasn't a repeat of the Uvalde situation.
Oh, no kidding. Well, yeah.
It's far too much to hope for that we'll get any kind of meaningful societal discussion about this because everybody's just too entrenched in their camps.
Yeah.
Everybody's just talking past each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I was only half kidding. I mean, if I did sit down and, coffee with Carlin Borsenko, I probably could explain some things. Or maybe she's just pretending she can't wrap her head around it. It's not that complicated to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right?
No,
I can understand why people say the things they do. I mean, it could be because they're naive. It could be because they're idealistic. It could be a lot of different reasons, right? But if you don't understand the other person's viewpoint, it makes it really hard to have any kind of conversation. And in some sense, I guess Borsenko is being honest because she's like, yeah, I don't get it. Okay, good. Admitting that you don't know the answer is actually a good step forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now learn a way to find out the answer. And it's actually something that I've done in the last really 2 years is I've gone into both liberal and conservative blogospheres, I guess, and also Twittersphere, and looked at the arguments that people are making to see why they feel the way that they feel about it. And it really has. I'll tell you this: one thing that has changed, truly a profound change in my political outlook in the last couple of years, is that there is a whole clot of Americans who feel whether or not this is accurate, and it's true to varying degrees, I think, they feel locked out of the possibilities for success in America.
Mhm.
And they feel like there's a clot of people ahead of them who have a much better chance of success. And as long as that's usually a sustainable dynamic tension in a society. But when things get too far out of whack, uh, when the elites and the upper class gets too far away from the very lower class, or the lower class becomes too damn big. When lower class becomes too big, too big, you get the French Revolution in one form or another. You will get the ship of state capsizes, and we have taken in it probably on the order of at least a couple of million uh, immigrants that we don't really know much about. They're new Americans who are undocumented. We're not even allowed to say that they are to comment on their legal status or lack of legal status on YouTube. We must refer to them as undocumented
Mhm.
seekers of the workers' paradise, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. What are we going to do about that? That's a really thorny problem. I think it's one of the biggest problems that we have.
Well, it is a thorny problem.
I lay this at your feet because you're smarter.
Yeah, I'll figure. Yeah, I'll come up with something.
Harry will figure it out.
Harry will figure it out.
Give him a Saturday and a Sunday. He can do any. I can do anything on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Obviously, the time to tell people that they have to be naturalized is earlier.
Yeah.
You know, after the fact, it becomes difficult.
That ship has sailed and the ocean has dried up.
Yeah. So at this point, fixing society is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
You know, how do you not have it turn into Malmo?
We have to do some socialization to the people who come in here. They're all coming in here and saying, no, you have to, they want us to react to them, to cater to them, but they've got to change a little bit and become a little bit more American, whatever that means. And that's changing too.
I think if we simply allow for coexistence and just put things on a saner track, say, yeah, we can all coexist. You can have your separate culture. That's fine. But there are a few basic requirements. One, you need to learn the damn language. And two, you need to actually respect the rights that we hold dear. Our constitutional process is important.
What language is that, colonizer?
Yeah, whatever. But the you don't want people. Unlike the Europeans who've got it way worse than we do, way worse. They've got people coming into their culture who literally don't want their culture to exist.
Right.
I'm looking at people who are just like who actually want to sort of be part of America, maybe a more Latinized version of America, but they show up, they take jobs, they do hard work, they want a lot of the same things.
You see this in Texas a lot. because believe it or not, a lot of the people who come to Texas, they're here for work.
Yeah.
They're here because they want to work. They want to work in America. America's
Hashtag not
free,
all.
it's safe. Hashtag not all. Free, it's safe, and compared to where they came from, and they have a chance at really getting ahead. And you know, I'm not going to tell that story.
So can I have something much lighter whenever you're ready
myself.
to pivot.
Censoring myself. I was going to get to the happy point of talking about which way the world in America is going, and I think America is about to not be the dominant country economically or militarily.
Entirely possible. I mean,
Navy
not
is
not
coming
to be,
along. They're still silly about the aircraft carriers, but their surface ships are getting better, and their seamanship is tremendously improved.
Well, being the world hegemon isn't really that great.
No, it's.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's like you're fighting to keep a job that nobody really ought to want. You know, what are the benefits of being the world hegemon? There's some financial benefits, right? We can throw our weight around and people will, you know, it's easier to get people extradited. You're a lot more likely to get certain types of business deals. But on the whole, we spend a lot of money being the world hegemon.
We do, but you know, given the amount of economic opportunity it represents to U.S. companies, it's where the U.S. Inc. is a profitable company. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, at least for now.
We do very yeah, exactly. At least for now. But what about when the dollar isn't the world index currency anymore?
Well, Biden's basically got it. We're like a car driving around with the parking brake about half engaged. You know, that's what he's doing to the economy.
Sort of. You know, yes.
Instead of just stripping away useless regulations and having, you know, saner sort of oversight from the government, instead of making it less onerous to do business at every possible turn, he's making it harder.
Right.
And the things that he does to make it harder are not of as much consequence to bigger businesses as smaller ones. So it's really just killing what's left of Main Street and making it so that you only work for these big companies. And these big companies are de facto arms of the U.S. government in that they will do the government's bidding whenever they want to. Oh, you don't need to have a subpoena. We'll just do whatever you want anyway. You don't want that news story to run. Anyway, I'm getting away from myself. I wanted to show you something. I want to show you what I made for dinner. All
right.
Okay, just because it's getting kind of heavy in here, and I don't want to be sad anymore. Okay, so this is I made a beef Wellington, but I made it using the chuck tender, tender instead of the big. So $5.29 on sale, as opposed to $30 a pound.
$35, right?
Yeah. So this is what I call baby Wellington. See, it's now smaller.
That's your own dough that you
yeah, I made puff pastry and did it all from scratch. So I'm not particularly good at making food pretty, but this is baby Wellington right here. And then
by the way, for those of you who wonder, beef Wellington is essentially usually a very expensive cut of beef done inside a puff pastry. Would that be the right way to describe it, Harry?
Yeah, typically beef Wellington is beef tenderloin. You give it just a little bit of browning. You then cover it in Dijon mustard and then a mixture of mostly mushrooms, but usually some shallots. Some people will optionally wrap that in a crepe before putting puff pastry around it, but I didn't. So you just put puff pastry around the outside of it and you heat it. Now, this particular piece of meat is smaller, so I didn't get quite as much browning on the pastry as I wanted, but it turned out like this. And you can see...
How tender was the meat?
Oh, it was fantastic. And the petite tender actually tastes better than the tenderloin, but to my thinking. And you can see that one little corner that's not covered in delicious gravy that I made with some California Pinot Noir and some beef demi-glaze and a few other little things I threw together. Yeah, and those are boiled new potatoes with just a little bit of butter, garlic, and parsley.
Good lad.
Yeah, I know it's not incredibly pretty, but you can see that it actually turned out pretty good, and the layers on my puff pastry are actually pretty solid.
I'm so impressed that you do that anyway. Beef Wellington is such an impressive dish. I've only had it a few times in my life, and I really like it.
I wanted to challenge myself. I was, it's I have all this really important work to do, and I just needed a mental break. So it's like, I guess I got to go make puff pastry, because it's like you make the dough, and then you have to have the butter be as cold as possible, and you do what are called book folds, where you'll cover 2/3 of it. Fold, roll it out, let it rest, rinse, lather, and repeat several cycles. And by the time you're done, you've got many, many, many layers of alternating butter and dough. And it's actually not particularly hard, but it is kind of time consuming, but in the best possible way. Kind of like fishing is time consuming. It's just like I've had an annoying, shitty day, and it gave me an opportunity to just go do something that had nothing to do with computers for a while.
Yeah.
So this was just the break that I need. And I have to say, it turned out really well. The the chuck tender is a really nice piece of meat. Some people don't agree with that, but
when you could have me chuck tender, do I not know this cut of beef? Because
it is called roast. It is called the Terrace Major.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to ask, is that the Terrace Major? Okay.
Some places actually, this is part of the clod, so it's adjacent to the chuck.
You can never get this.
Oh, they have smoked clod at Croy's Market, and it's very, very good. It's like the brisket, but it's much leaner. So you get something that's almost like a really good ham that tastes like beef. It's very good. I actually really like the smoked clod at Croy's Market in Lockhart, Texas. But anyway, you can have your show back. I just wanted to show you that.
Lockhart, that's down there in the Ranger country.
Yeah, well, it's right outside of Austin, but
yeah, well, it's not where the no country ranches are. Yeah, no, I pass right by Lockhart when I'm driving home from San Antonio.
Yeah, it's not hipster barbecue like Aaron Franklin's Franklin Barbecue. He's selling these smokers now, and they're really nice, well-made smokers, but they cost them as much as a good used car. For like a stick burner for your backyard. No, I'm not kidding.
Really?
They're really expensive.
You can overpay. I used to laugh at all my friends who overpaid for clothes, and I see the same thing with, people overpay for like the green egg, and it does what it does really well. And you can also have all that capability for about less than half that amount of money. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you can do, obviously a big stick burner is the gold standard, and having really big, thick steel with good quality welds, it's going to have much better temperature control than some cheaply made thing that you get for $500 at the Ace Hardware around the corner, right? Yep. It's going to be better. There's no way it's not going to be better. If you learn to weld, obviously you can, go get yourself an old propane tank and go to town and build yourself, a monster thing that'll be even better yet. But for a thing that just shows up and does everything it's supposed to do, it's fine, but it's really just sort of a status thing, I think. There's a certain point where you're just paying for status. Like, people can come over and see that you've got more money than sense when you bought yourself a $7,000 smoker for your backyard that is not capable of like feeding two little league teams. If you're going to spend that much money, it better come on a trailer and be towable, and you better be able to feed 100 people.
Oh, yeah. Uh,
I did barbecue chicken once. I mean, technically grilled chicken once for about 300 people one time. And I did that. Yeah, it was a volunteer thing. So they had a bunch of people doing different things, you know, and they had little tickets people would buy. You know, you'd have your ticket.
Were you cooking chickens?
I was cooking chickens, and they would do this. I just volunteered because it was, you know, it's a nonprofit thing, and so I got tapped to go do this thing. So I got a bunch of chicken, and I went with the dry rub and then spray it regularly with a mixture of Jim Beam and cider vinegar and a little bit of Worcester sauce and just a few other things just to keep it nice and moist. And I stayed on top of this stuff, and it was great. It was one of the proudest moments of my life when I overheard these little kids trying to Tom Sawyer some other kids into trading meal tickets with them because everybody was talking about how good the chicken was.
Oh,
and they didn't want it. They didn't. Yeah, it's like, oh, I win.
Nice.
I win.
Yeah, good ego.
That chicken turned out really good.
Mm-hmm. No, that well grilled chicken is a thing of beauty. It's something that I spent a little time grilling and learning to turn chicken into, you know, a nice, moist, delicious, fully cooked grilled chicken. But I can also barbecue it. I can cook it the long way too, and that's fun to do because then you have that kind of falling off the bone situation that chicken is really good that way.
Well, if you're going to do chicken for real, indirect heat, long time smoke, that whole thing.
Yep.
What you can do is get yourself some of those 5-gallon buckets, some nice clean ones. Get yourself some chickens, put them in the bucket, and then get like the Costco size container of mild or medium salsa. You know, Ortega, Pace, whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't even want it to be fancy. Just tomatoes, onions, peppers. That's all you want. Pour it over the top of the chicken. Put it in a big refrigerator for like overnight at the very least. Take it out, smoke it.
2 days.
And what happens?
2 days.
Well, what happens is if you really want to go to town, you can lift up the skin, kind of push some of that underneath the skin on top of the breast.
I have done this.
The tomato will caramelize as you've got it in the smoker, and just it flavors it, but it also adds just a little bit of a sweetness to it. It keeps the breast all nice, and the dark meat turns out fantastic.
I do this with the tomato paste recipe. I can't believe it. Yeah. I do something very similar to that.
Well, I got the idea from a place called Sam's Barbecue in Campbell or San Jose, California. And they used to do this sort of thing, but then the kids took over and the chicken got to be shitty quality and it all went downhill. You just can't get good descendants these days sometimes. I mean, your kid's pretty good. I've seen videos of his course thing that he was doing that you sent me. You got a good one. You got at least one good one, but Sam's kids, they're all terrible, and they ruined all of his barbecue stuff. We can talk about politics anytime you want. I'm just I don't know why we're talking about this crap.
Well, you just never know. You never know where your kids are going to go. You know, one of the things that to offer a little palate cleanser, as you would say. I had something done by a friend of mine, and you and I both love these old commercials, and that we used to see in magazines, and it was always the how to make father pop with pride. And this is an Arrow shirt thing with dad coming home from work, and after a hard day, the kids are holding brand new shirts and just waiting for dad to come in. Mom, we're gonna surprise dad, but maybe mom, perhaps mom found something on one of the shirts that she didn't mean to, and mom had a different uh, uh, a different greeting, let's say, for dad, and was was waiting along with the kids. The kids were going to show dad the evidence as mom pronounced sentence.
Well, there's a silencer. You don't want to script the kids' ears.
Exactly. Kefke did this for me, and Kefke, if you don't know who she is, and I'll put her
I do.
Information in chat. I know you do, Harry. Is one of our.
Oh, sorry, you weren't talking to me.
No, I'm talking to the universe.
You're talking to the great audio radiance. Yes.
Yes. It's the great yawn that speaking to, but and she very kindly photoshopped that pistol and silencer in there, and just made me laugh. And I wanted to shout her out and just thank her for just being a great sport. Just did that for no reason other than she knew it would amuse me. And so I want to put it out there that she's out there. She does take commissions and does excellent work. So very, very talented artist. And yeah, I should put her. I think I've got her Deviant Art thing. Let's see. Where was the? Here it is. Now, copy that. Copy message link. And roll. This is where you can find Kefke on Discord.
Kefke's native habitat.
Yep. And on so at any rate, and I'll post a couple of her other links up there. But that I just thought that was so much fun that I had to share that with you. And it was just such a perfect little setup. And when I saw that ad, I thought, Mom, if she was holding a gun, it would be so much darker. And I talked about the idea with Kefke, and she photoshopped that right in. So that was pretty fun. But at any rate, yeah, I don't know what's to become of us. You know, I like to talk about politics, but I also like to talk about world domination and what are the big trends. And one of the big trends I see is the U.S. not being the world hegemon anymore. You say that you think you see some silver linings in that, and I do too. The only thing is that when the hegemon dies, sometimes they or is no longer is dethroned as hegemon. There's usually a group of countries behind it who are anti the old hegemon, and it could be some lean times for the United States coming up.
Yeah. You think there'll be payback if we decide to retire as the world hegemon?
No kidding. Really well and truly. And it's not going to come from China. China will seek to exploit us and will seek to essentially acquire us out from underneath ourselves, both culturally and financially. Europe has had their feelings hurt for a long time, thinking that they haven't been treated with the appropriate respect by upstart United States.
I have good news for you, Skep.
It's still a thing over there. What's that?
Europe is a bunch of idiots.
I
was actually, if you look at the GDP of the European Union, it's about the same as the GDP of the US. Right?
It sure is.
They have abundant natural resources. They have some of the world's best educational institutions. In a lot of ways, you can make an apples to apples comparison between Europe and the United States. As bad as we are, Europe is worse. The EU and van der Leyden or whatever her stupid name is. They are just completely out to lunch. I don't worry like I used to about Europe. I used to think that Europe was going to be our big competition. Nah, not so worried about it anymore. Well, I mean, it'd be one thing if somebody else was in ascendance to take our place, but it seems like everybody is in descent mode. We're all on a glide path. So for us to not be the world hegemon, somebody has to actually suck less than us and surpass us. And as bad as we are, I mean,
Germany's not going to fill that role.
European Union, who is it going to be? Is it time for the Pan-African Union finally? Is it Nigeria's time to shine? Yeah. I mean, who the hell is going to replace the United States?
Well, you essentially won't have, you'll have regional hegemons. That will be the result. And we'll still be the regional hegemon in our region. But in terms of, it won't be safe. And this is where you get to the thing about aircraft carriers. And this is why China and now France and Britain are getting off their asses and figuring out how to build decent carriers. And China finally gave up on nuclear carriers and are going back to gas turbine carriers, which they can manage to sail and keep underway. But they're not buying old, outdated Russian technology. They've engineered enough of their own stuff where they're starting to put out decent mid-sized ships, and they're going to get the carrier thing figured out. It's not rocket science. It's lots and lots of layers of technology, but it's nothing that's hard to figure out in a ship. Not really. Not that isn't known. So they will have a Navy that certainly can give us a lot of trouble inside of 20 years from now. Probably inside 10 years.
Maybe.
Probably inside of 10 years. They really
have a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong because obviously nobody can see the future, but I'd say that they have kind of an uphill road in front of them as far as that's concerned. How's their little space station coming along? I mean, as big a piece of crap as the ISS is, how's their little alternative space station? Aren't they supposed to have a man on the moon by now?
Yeah. Well, no, their little space station has some interesting conveniences in it, but in terms of sophistication and about what it does, it's about like Mir. In terms of it doesn't have a lot of the cool bells and whistles that the ISS has, because they are limited to what China has developed and the technology that they can acquire internationally. And that cuts them off from a lot of stuff that was developed for space. Now, the thing is, they're developing this stuff independently, and they've got smart people over in China. They're getting this stuff figured out, and they are going to get better at that. Here's the thing about China that I've noticed, and I see this in different eons in different epochs of the Chinese existence. They are hard workers, and they will work until they get stuff figured out. It doesn't matter how much work it takes, how hard the work is. They will fucking slog away at it. They're not brilliant. They're not inspired necessarily, but they work hard, they work steady, and they are inexorable. And there's a whole bunch of them. And that is going to add up to making China a potent international power. I would want them to be powerful and friendly. That would be great. But we haven't done a great job of our relationship with China. And you know, it's tricky having a relationship with a dog that wants to eat you. I mean, basically what having a friend like China is like. I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I see the U.S. Not in ascendancy anymore, and I see a lot of a lack of national will for the first time in my life at the idea of the U.S. being leaders in the world.
Okay, I have a terrible hypothesis for you.
Oh yay!
What if
What's that?
What if your sample size is just too heavily weighted toward the things you're familiar with, meaning the U.S.? What if the actual, you're just grabbing one leg of the elephant?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we're doing, right? Because there's only so much. Because the media is all lies and everything's terrible. But you firmly got your hand on one leg of the elephant. And that's the part that you think is important because that's the part you can reach your arms around.
Right.
What if the entire planet kind of sucks? What if humanity, all of humanity, overall is just in decline? And it isn't that the U.S. is in decline. What if everything is in decline?
Decline relative to what? In terms of decaying
relative
standards?
To the past growth rate. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, pick a metric. Pick a metric. You can talk about it being quality of pop music. It doesn't really matter what it is. I think overall, humanity may be in decline. Because we see articles.
Here's what I think you're sensing. You're sensing a decrease in the second differential. That rate of increase may be decreasing, in other words. And that may be what you sense.
I'm thinking it's the first differential, the first derivative.
You think things actually turned over and is headed down?
I think we're mouse utopiaing ourselves, and the other problem is that we're running into resource limits. Now, I find it's annoying to me when I hear people who I think, well, okay, I shouldn't be annoyed by people disagreeing with me. I'm one of the few people who I don't think I'm an idiot. I do idiotic things, but I don't think I'm an idiot. And I am totally not on board with this idea that we need a lot of population growth to be successful. I don't think GDP is the only measure by which we should evaluate the trajectory of humankind. However, a lot of things get harder, and simply saying, well, in the past, we always found ways to overcome these things, therefore, we're not going to worry about these resource limits, is bullshit. There's only so much land that isn't underwater every 20 years. There's only so much fresh water available to drink. There's only so much timber. There's only so much of a lot of things. And as resources become more constrained, as you start getting 8 billion, 9 billion, 10 billion people, everything just becomes harder. You talk about, oh, well, we should have electric cars, but look at how much lithium it would take just to make the batteries for the electric cars. Yeah, everything scales up, right? When you have billions and billions of people, every single problem becomes harder. Now, we had, with 3.5 billion people and a strong United States, not giving a crap about anybody else, we managed to put a man on the moon. More than one, right?
Yep.
Seems to me that as a civilization, we could probably be just fine with 3.5 billion people. But that's not really the center of my point. Resource competition for resources is just one aspect of this. I don't know if it's resource limitation or a mouse utopia kind of thing, or what exactly is going on. But it seems to me that as a species, we may not be going in the right direction right now. Doesn't mean it isn't fixable, but I would much rather fix it through some sort of dramatic cultural shift than for us to essentially be like a junkie who hits rock bottom and then cleans themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot that I just threw out there.
No, how hard does reality have to smack us in the face before we will say, wait a minute, we've got to start doing something differently.
Yeah. I see people complain about like healthcare, for instance, right? Just looking at the microcosm for a moment. And then I look around and I see people who can't afford a home buying cars that they can't afford and putting rims that spin on them, right?
Right.
You see people who, and okay, this is okay. I don't want to just insult half of our chat, but maybe this is just me being old. But I hear people talk about like the hours and hours and hours and hours that they spend playing video games.
Yeah.
I like fun as much as the next person.
Yeah.
But I do kind of feel like moderation and a good balance of like recreation and personal development might be in order.
Yeah.
You know, spend half as much time playing video games and maybe learn how to weld at your community college or something. I don't know, just whatever it is.
Or learn how to learn how to make a beef Wellington.
Well, there's no sense of urgency.
No.
People don't have any sense of urgency that they have a finite amount of time, and if they want to leave things better than when they showed up, you have to actually put some effort into that. And I mean, not everybody, obviously, and I don't think that people are necessarily getting less intelligent, maybe on average, but there's still more than enough intelligent people to do a lot of the heavy lifting. If you go what
are the two things that prevent them from doing that? I'll tell you what they are: effort and risk. Nobody wants to make an effort. Nobody wants to take any risk. What video games supply is the ability to get a psychological payoff with virtually no effort and absolutely no risk.
Yep.
You get the payoffs of life that we used to get by enlisting in the Navy and going for a 5-year adventure, or signing up to be a stockbroker, or doing something interesting with your life. That is not on a lot of people's agenda anymore, and they're perfectly content to stay down in their underwear in the basement room of their parents' house, twiddling on their dials because the serotonin must flow. And
no, I like video games. I like video games just fine. I'm just saying maybe
me too.
Some balance. That's all.
Hashtag
just
me too.
Kind of like you can't live on nothing but ice cream.
Yeah.
I love ice cream.
I'd like
ice
to try
cream is
that.
literally, ice cream is just about one of my favorite foods. In fact, if it didn't matter what food did to your body, I would just have homemade macaroni and cheese, just a little pinch of Coleman's mustard, some sharp cheddar cheese, homemade bechamel sauce. Sorry, I know I'm going full sanguine again. I didn't use the M word when I talked about the beef Wellington. That's how you know it's not sanguine. With some really good vanilla ice cream. Totally fine. But I know that I can't do that. I don't feel like people get much in the way of guidance. They don't get a lot of guidance. They don't get a lot of inspiration. I don't really blame people for being rudderless, because I don't feel like they've been set up for a good shot at not being rudderless.
Yeah.
So all I do is with people that I know, I try to set a good example. And I try to mentor people. If somebody asks me for help with something, I do my best to help them, to get ahead. Like there's this one guy who's a young guy at my biggest customer, and he's ostensibly in charge of planning a project out. Now, admittedly, I keep taking over the meetings and giving everybody action items and stuff, but it's his job to write all this shit down and do this stuff. And so I'm gradually pulling back and letting him do more and more of the stuff, because he's a good kid. He's like 25, 26. He's a good kid. This guy's the future. It's in everybody's best interest to like pull this guy up. So I do everything I can within my limited capability to try to help people. I've often thought that maybe I should write a book. And the thought I had about the book was essentially, what if I had a time machine and I could send a message to my 21-year-old self, what would I tell myself? I only had a limited amount of bandwidth, right? Like almost like I could send myself a handful of telegrams. What would I tell my 21-year-old self to make my life better now? And I don't know. I mean, first of all, that's a stupid idea, because writing books is dumb. It's a lot of work and there's almost no reward for it. But I don't I don't
Writing a
blame
book is
people.
the right thing for you to do if you're driven to write, and that's why you write.
But
then that's the right time to write a book. Everybody
you know,
wants to.
but why? You know, why are people as rudderless as they are? You know, is it because scouting's not good anymore? Is it because the schools are run by a bunch of idiots who actually need the kids to validate their choices? I don't know. Is anybody still watching this show?
What?
Have I driven everybody away with my nihilism?
No, not at all. In fact, I was reading some of Tally's here, Hate Camels here, Assassin, Rotten Corpse.
No, Rotten Corpse is absolutely right. 4 days
Blizzard.
on, 1 day off. That's a good schedule.
Rinse and repeat.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to say that one of the best things, one of the best purchases I ever made was I got a Bowflex on sale, and then I had like this super discount from Big Five Sporting Goods. So I got like the Schwinn version of the Bowflex, and then quickly realized I could take caps and things out of the plastic pieces and buy more rods and put it on there, so I could max this thing out. The poor little thing. I've put that thing through so many decades of abuse.
You actually use your Bowflex. Most people buy them for their, abilities as a
clothes rack,
laundry rack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can give it to your wife or girlfriend or something, and they can hang their Lululemon athletic gear that they never use. After they hand wash it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing better than just having your ass crack on display at the frozen yogurt place.
You guys want to work out? Come spend the day weeding the garden like we did. We did the tomato gardens today, and my legs are so tired they're numb from kind of squatting over and pulling weeds. And that was a lot of work. Granddaughter came over, and Brenda and I and granddaughter turned too. That was that's my workout. On top of that, all I had to brag about was a 4-mile walk with my dogs.
Yeah, 4 miles is pretty good.
I actually run about a mile of that.
I can't do that, and the reason is because Harry, a long time ago, I was dumb. I had this friend who was a charismatic idiot, and he convinced me to do something once that completely shredded my knees.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was one of these. It was just. It's a long damn story, and I'm not going to get into it. But because I had this charismatic and annoying friend who convinced me to do something that I knew was wrong. So this is all my fault. I mean, I knew it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I even said during this thing, I said, yeah, it was a bike thing. He said, oh yeah, you got to raise the seat up because I went to UC Davis. You got to raise it up so you get full extension on your leg with every stroke. Let's go on a 40-mile bike ride. And I'm like, I'm dying. I need to call somebody and have them come get me. This was around like mile 25. And I shredded my knees with this.
Really?
Thing. There's no 4-mile walks. And, I mean, I can't run. I can do, I can go walk 3-4 miles, but running, no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I get terrible knee pain. Terrible knee pain.
Is it in the sides of your knees or on top of your knees?
Oh, I've looked at the diagrams too. It seems to be all the good stuff on the inside. I'm sure that there's some amount of surgery that could probably fix it up.
Yeah, that's called the medial lateral ligament. That's what that is. The medial lateral. Yeah.
I've read lots of books and had exercises and stuff. The big thing that actually got me back to not being completely broken out of this was I switched to shoes that are completely flat. They have no heel rise whatsoever. Yeah. And that actually has made my life so much better than it was.
Do you have flat feet?
No. They use
you have a high arch.
I have a regular arch.
Okay. Never mind.
My feet are neither flat nor overly high, but they're modeled after the Munson Last, which was something that I guess the military played with back in 1910 or something.
Yeah, turn century, yeah.
Yeah, and the Munson Last is a
How do
pretty
you
good
know
thing.
about that?
Yeah, so the Munson Last is a good thing. So that's what my shoes are modeled on. And I got them from the Russell Moccasin Company of Racine, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And no, Berlin, Wisconsin. Excuse me, Berlin, Wisconsin. And they cost me a lot of money, and I have 2 pairs of them. But they're pretty much the only shoes that I ever wear. And then every few years, I'll send a pair off to get them serviced. Where they will just put new. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I spent like almost $900 on shoes 15 years ago. But I don't go to the store and buy like new Timberlands for $130 every year like everybody else does. I spend less money on shoes than most people do because I just have the same shoes and I get them sold all the time, and I use the correct stuff to take care of the leather. They fix all the stitching, they put new soles on them, and my shoes are like, I don't know, 15 years old at this point. And it was switching to those kinds of shoes that saved my knees, which is why I didn't have to get cut open and left to the tender mercies of modern medicine.
Elevating your heel cause stress.
Yeah, it threw everything out of kilter.
This stuff is complicated. I had reason to find out something about that years ago back when I was running in marathons. I got injured and I got to know all about the knees. And
so yeah, Rotten Corpse is basically saying I need dumbbells, free weights, and a couple other machines. Yeah, dumbbells are great. Free weights are fantastic.
That's all I use is free weights. That's all I've ever used is free weights.
And as you get older, maintaining musculature is really good because not only does it help keep your base metabolism up, but it also protects you from injury.
It also protects your circulatory system. If you're working the muscles, particularly those in your peripheral, and I'm fighting this now because I have a tendency toward Raynaud's disease, just with the circulatory issues, particularly in my hands, and that it's also comes from 50 years of abusing my hands on stringed instruments, for hours a day.
But no alcohol, which is good.
Yeah, no alcohol for 20 years.
That's actually pretty huge. But go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the I don't know.
Well, you're talking about your circulation. Pycnogenol is not the worst idea. The pine bark derivative stuff.
Yep.
Seems to help more people. Can't necessarily swear that it's a good idea, but you got to keep taking it, and it's not terribly expensive. Yeah. I've actually turned a few friends on to that who were having blood pressure problems, and it was enough of a drop that for just mild hypertension that it got them out of having to take meds.
Yeah. I got to be careful. I'm actually taking 3 things for hypertension now, and
sorry. Not giving medical advice.
Well, yeah, no, it's I've looked into it. Allegedly. But there are a lot of over-the-counter things, like that phosphatidyl that I've begun taking recently, recommended to me by a friend, and that's made. I can tell it's made a significant difference when your grandchildren are coming up to you and saying, "Wow, you're a lot brighter and cheerier and smarter than usual." Gotta go. Okay, it's not just me that's noticing that. It's like I'm perkier.
Yeah, there's a few other people that.
Correct, but
Well, there's a few other people that I turned on to that thing. My fancy doctor told me, and I've told 2 friends, and they've told 2 friends, and so on and so on and so on. Unfortunately, if enough people get it, they'll probably try to turn it into a prescription drug. Because God forbid we have something effective.
Down the rabbit hole. You've sent me down the rabbit hole of serene chemistry, which is SERINE. By the way, it's a class of chemical salts. Anyway, it's and as you know, these chemistry black holes, they just suck you in, and there's no end to them. There is no end to them.
Anything worth doing is worth overdoing, Skep. That's what I tell my my poor girlfriend.
Yeah, that's your long-suffering girlfriend. We should have her on the stream sometime.
Not going to happen. She's actually smart and goes to sleep pretty much about the same time we start.
Yeah, that's what my wife does. She just, I have no interest in that.
Well, I remember back pre-COVID when I used to go out and play pool in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there would be like a woman usually who'd say, well, we don't believe she exists. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Does that work? Tell us about her. No. Well, how about just if I just guess and you tell me if I'm right? How about I'm not answering any questions. I'm not doing any of this. I'm not playing into whatever this is supposed to be. You get 0.
Right.
Well, we don't believe she exists. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I said, the main thing is you've seen me here for over a year. Have you ever once seen me chat up a woman or try to hit on her? Not once. Not once.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good evidence.
In terms of that.
Pretty good evidence that I don't need to.
For whatever reason, knowing look, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah. Because if I didn't have an imaginary girlfriend, I would be looking for one.
You would be looking for an imaginary,
which I'm clearly not doing. So leave me the fuck alone, because this 20 questions trap thing isn't going to work. It's man, it's great being a little bit older, because 20-year-old Harry wouldn't have realized a lot of stuff. I had a guy the other day want to essentially say, well, when are we going to get more of your time, and how can we set up a schedule where a certain amount of stuff no, we're not playing this game. If you have a problem, you tell me, and then we figure out how to solve it. I'm not pre-committing to whatever you think any of this is.
Yeah.
So that you can then come back and say, well, Harry said blah, blah. No, shut up. I'm not playing your game. If you have a problem, you tell me, I'll find a way to get it fixed.
You can also say you cannot afford my pre-committing fee.
Yeah, you can't. You want to keep me on retainer? Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, enough about
let me know when you run out of money.
Well, what's more annoying, talking about my stupid life, or talking about how the society's and humanity's in a state of decline?
It's funny that you should say that, because I was sitting here before the stream and I thought, I should come up with one story that provides me some hope for the future, something inspiring, something good. And what I came up with was nothing. Nothing is making me happy these days. Nothing makes me think things are going to get any better. And I don't have a lot of hopes for the future. I think probably we should just stay in the past.
Yeah.
Forget about the future.
That sounds like a good plan.
Jane Goodall thought that we needed about, 500,000 people on the whole planet. We should kill off everybody else, leave 500,000 people on the planet. And that was about the right number of humans. Would that solve some of the problems that you're talking about, Harry?
Any number that doesn't let us mount an asteroid defense is too small.
That's a good point. How many people do you need?
Well, that's why I kind of like the 3.5 billion, because we were able to have the US by ourselves make a space program. That seems like a good floor.
Yeah.
Now, the ceiling, honestly, is probably about 7.5. You start getting up into 8, 9, 10.
For the world?
No. Yeah.
I've seen stuff where processes and materials seem to fold at about 19 million.
Yeah, I don't see billion, and I don't see why
19 billion. But
why? What's the point of flirting with that limit?
Well, hold.
Sorry, go
And
ahead.
but then what the prognosticators say is that we're going to level off at about 12 billion, and that's going to be the end of it. And so, I saw it on the internet.
Yeah, so it must be true. But why not just
It
make our
should be
lives
okay.
easy? Why not
It should
just
be
make our
okay.
lives easy, Skep? Why?
And kill 4 billion people.
No, but just no. But I'm not suggesting killing anybody. I'm simply saying that yeah, there's all this land, but all the really nice places to build a house already have a house.
Right.
Okay. I understand that you could take all the people in the world and give them some number of square feet of land in Texas and they could all just wave at each other. That just Texas by itself could hold the mass of human beings fairly easily. But not all of Texas is that nice. I mean, let's be honest, Skep. There's parts of Texas that aren't so good.
No, that's true. If you took the entire population of the world and wanted to house it at a population density that exists in Bangladesh, it would not just fit in Texas. It would fit in I think it's Connecticut. I forget, but that's the if we really wanted to box people, really wanted to cram people in, get them to a population density of like Bangladesh, we can really concentrate the people and give the earth a chance to recover by leaving it uninhabited, which that will do, right?
Yeah.
Because having that many people in one place, it's not going to create any problems.
No, this is Monday's dinner. This is yesterday's dinner, by the way.
And here's Tommy. He's tomorrow's dinner.
I'm getting pretty good at this crap.
Oh my God.
Sorry. Anyway.
It's wonderful. Hang on. I'm going to embiggen you. I want to see that. That looks like a pizza, a real pizza.
It is. It is. And, the beautiful thing is that stuff like this does not cost a lot of money to make.
No, it does not.
You can pay a ton of money to have somebody else do it, but using Graincraft 25-pound bag for like, I don't know, $14 from the restaurant supply place, it's 00 flour, decent tomatoes, a little fresh basil, a little mozzarella, all from the restaurant supply store. I can make a pizza like this for practically nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of my New Year's resolutions. Eat more pizza, buy less pizza, so you can see where things are going. So I digress. But for a pizza made in a not wood-burning oven, sort of a Neapolitan-style pizza, that's not so bad, considering that it wasn't that long ago that I would just have the dough and the sauce just fly off the peel onto the pizza stone.
Yes.
I've reached the point where I can actually get the pizza on, I can actually shape the pizza and get it on and off the pizza stone without a catastrophe happening each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I'm at that point where I can do something that's pretty good. And a lot of the restaurants are just not very good. They're just not. Kidding. I can, even with my not particularly deep knowledge of pizza, with somewhere in the, I don't know, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, 50 hours. I'm doing okay.
That's, I've been so spoiled by good cooking for so long. It's not even funny.
Well, that's one reason why imaginary girlfriend puts up with me, is because I spoil her rotten. I spoil her rotten with food and other things. As annoying as I am not the worst person to have around.
That if you ever write a book, you should call it Cooking and Calculus. That's a rockin' title, for one thing, alliteratively. And it's got good flow to it. And you could write an interesting book. Have you ever read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, you could write that book. In fact, you're kind of living that life in some ways. You remind me of your attitude toward life and your philosophical nature remind me of the guy who wrote that book.
I did read Zen and the Art of Bicycle Maintenance, but that's because
a different book.
That is a different book, but same general kind of idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's important to challenge yourself. It's really important that you try to get better at things that you suck at. I mean, obviously,
know when to give up.
Yeah.
Know when to give up. Okay,
but things that are within your capacity to improve on. I mean, you definitely should.
I'm not a left-handed reliever for the Yankees. Okay?
Man, I've seen some Dunning-Kruger people, just some really bad Dunning-Kruger people. I told you I knew this woman who, I mean, really nice, very nice person, annoying as hell, just absolutely annoying because everybody, wherever she would go, she would want people to pay attention to her. Nice person. But she was desperately wanting to be a radio personality.
Oh boy.
And so she would work like anything she could do to get radio time, like morning 5 a.m. traffic on the country station. She would be doing the traffic on the country station at 5 a.m.
That's the hustle those people need to.
That is the hustle, but she did it for more than a decade and never really advanced. And she picked up a different persona and one time managed to get on KGO doing traffic with one of the big stations in the US. And she absolutely sucked. You know, this is after taking classes, 10 years of experience. She did everything she could possibly do. And it's just like the perfect Dunning-Kruger thing. She thought she was awesome. And she was absolutely terrible. And the only thing that made it really sad is that she's actually a really nice person, but annoying. So I feel conflicted. I once at a big trade show thing in San Francisco thought I saw her and ran as fast as I could to the opposite side of the convention center to make sure that I didn't run into somebody who I thought might be her. That's the level of annoyance.
I've actually done that at conventions to get away from annoying people. I know just what you're talking about.
But if she was like mean and a piece of shit, it wouldn't be so hard. I'd just say, you know.
But you feel bad, don't you?
You know, you don't surf. You've never surfed. Fuck you. You just get lost. But because she was actually a nice person, just ignore her. Just try to avoid her at all costs.
Yeah. Right.
She put on her resume. This is actually on her resume. Under other skills, it said 24 karat gold plated kazoo.
What?
Yeah. She has a 24 karat gold plated kazoo. She has that on her resume under other skills. Keep in mind, nice person.
Just notice me.
That's
what that is.
Yeah, just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that she was born with the set of non-skills that she possesses.
Yeah, exactly, because she's doing the things that seem like what successful people do in that industry. She's just not doing them well enough to get noticed by that industry. I was married to this one time. I was married to a woman who was a Phi Beta Kappa master's degree in journalism, could not hold a writing job. Got writing job after writing job, got fired and fired and fired. Finally got a job as a magazine salesman, got fired from that. And it was a great marriage.
Did you ever hear the following phrase? I don't understand why these things keep happening to me.
Yeah, oh my God. This was a refrain. It was a refrain. Yeah.
Man, I you know, weirdly, she's actually world famous for something completely unrelated to the radio thing, and I'm not going to dox her because it would just be a thing. No. But she actually achieved notoriety in a different area, which I'll tell you after the stream is over. Yeah,
interesting.
That's not important. It's just that she achieved notoriety. So, but she did me a huge favor because observing somebody with Dunning-Kruger syndrome like that, it does make me take pause sometimes. Like I'm like, okay, I don't want to be that person. You know, well, you have to be open to the possibility that you could be that person under different circumstances.
You think you've got that problem?
Well, I've got imposter syndrome. I've got the opposite problem. But go on.
Yeah. I tend to think I'm much better and much more knowledgeable with things than I am, because I have a capability of making myself extremely much more knowledgeable than I should have a right to very quickly about almost any subject. I'm absolutely fearless in delving into stuff, but there there are things that are too complicated to even develop a summary, a master of all the summaries. There's just too many summaries. Biochemistry is a little bit like that. I never uh, I don't know anybody who understands all of biochemistry. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
How absolutely gargantuan.
well, Euler was the
that
last
field
true
is.
polymath. So
Right. Oh,
and that's
I
like
was just
late
reading about
19th
that.
century or no, late
Yeah.
20th, late 19th
Yeah.
century, excuse
19th
me.
century. 19th century.
Yeah, EULER. Look it up, folks.
Euler.
But the mathematics, just mathematics by itself, is such a huge discipline that he was like the last guy who basically understood all of it.
Right. Yeah, he was the last fully fledged.
He was the last guy. So basically, he was the last big-brained guy to come along who could fit all of the knowledge of mathematics in his head as it existed. Now it's just too big for anybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's bullshit. But anyway,
Well, a lot of it is bullshit.
A lot of it is bullshit.
Number theory stuff is just it's nomenclature. That's bullshit. Anyway, don't get me started.
Well, yeah, I once showed up for okay, well, just shut up, Harry. Just about to dox myself. There's a channel on YouTube which I don't know if you're familiar with, Sabine Hassenfelder. Hassenfelder.
I watch every video she makes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would recommend to chat that they check that out because she has a really interesting channel. I mean, I don't agree with every single thing she says, mind you, but her analysis is good. Her analysis is good. And one of the most recent videos she did was basically the problem with modern cosmology, where if you've got a bunch of data, you can just come up with an equation that fits the existing data points. And it's just really a lot of cosmology is just mental masturbation. And except it's not funny because there's so much money involved in it. It's a really good video if you haven't watched that particular one. If you want to see what's wrong with some kinds of science, I think that's a good one to take a look at. About, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, I think it was this year.
I must have. I'm sure I have seen that. I know I have several of her things in my queued to watch, which I never get back to sometimes, or don't get back to.
Honestly, I only watched the first half of it because she makes her point just fine there. It's the video is about twice as long as it needs to be.
Well, that's
and they don't need to explain curve fitting to me. I don't. It's just not a thing I need to learn about. But it's a good video.
Thing everyone else should learn about. Everyone else needs to learn about.
I think the thing the thing that everybody else needs to learn about is Bayesian analysis.
Right, Bayesian analysis and
because if there's like one thing in math/computer science that the common everyday layperson would benefit from understanding, it's probably that. Because it affects so much of your life already. And a lot of the things that the system's going to do to you later are going to be based on that.
A thing on Bayesian inference and Bayesian statistics.
But we should veer
Scholarpedia.
Yeah, but we should definitely veer into a different direction before I start talking about the implicit function theorem.
Let's not do that. We'll be talking about Lorenz's interesting.
No,
work.
I'm not going to talk about that.
we can talk about that later. But
differential equations are too hard.
Yeah, I showed you that discussion that I had with Chat GPT setting up differential equations.
God, I hate AI. I really just don't like it. I don't mind machine learning, but AI is just so not interesting to me.
What I found interesting was the number of mistakes it makes. it's absolutely riddled with mistakes. It
I
makes
just
errors.
can't. I just can't even, as Prospero would say.
Yeah. It's not quite ready for prime time, but you can have some interesting. It's really good at doing the scut work of math, and but you really have to ride herd on it to make sure it's doing the math right, because it can really take some liberties, and if you don't know what you're talking about, you won't know what it's talking about. But anyway.
Yeah, well, machine learning is interesting. AI is not. And I know machine learning is like a subset of AI. I like machine learning quite a bit. But the thing about machine learning, well, okay, we don't want to talk about this.
No, I was looking for this statement about Bayesian statistics. This is why people don't learn science. This is why people don't learn math. It's sentences like this. Bayesian statistics is a system for describing epistemological uncertainty using the mathematical language of probability. In the Bayesian paradigm, degrees of belief in states of nature are specified. These are non-negatives, and the total belief in all states of nature is fixed to 1.
Oh, that clears things up.
Yeah, this is the problem with Scholarpedia and Wikipedia and so forth, is you have these guys who want to show how literate they are in mathematical terminology. And so they write this high flying stuff. What was the thing I tried to look up in Wikipedia? And I've got, what's it? It's a couple of years ago, I looked up something in Wikipedia, and it was something that should have been straightforward. It was something pertaining to calculus. I forget what it was. And the way it was explained was so thick and turgid and laden with the jargon of mathematics as to be unreadable, save by someone who was studying that particular part of mathematics. I remember that was my impression at the time. I was disgusted by it. And, went and looked up another definition. I was looking it up for somebody, and I can't remember who I was looking it up for or why. But anyway, there's a lot of the stuff online that is just turgid. And one of the things that I really appreciate in science writing is when people write for clarity and not brevity necessarily, but efficiency of conveying meaning.
Mm-hmm.
That was the gift that Sagan had. I always thought was he was able to, through explanation, analogy, through use of some really inspired ideas, get complicated beliefs across to people that heretofore had been off limits. It's mysterious science. It's, who knows how any of that stuff works. And he opened up that world to a lot of people who never would have taken another look at it. I'm a Sagan fan. Just
well, I've already told you that that I was denied an opportunity to see him speak when I was a kid. And so every time you say his name, it raises my blood pressure. Like it wounds me. It does. It's so painful. Let's go look at the rats in the centrifuge. Fuck you and your stupid shirt. You don't surf. So the I'm just trying to think here. In terms of those kinds of encyclopedia things, Stanford has one for philosophy, which is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. So instead of just giving you useless verbiage, they actually give you useful descriptions of things. So, for instance, if you look up in the Stanford Dictionary or Encyclopedia of Philosophy, a thing that I actually find interesting called moral particularism, it will give you a usable entry about moral particularism, which doesn't just leave you thinking, was a ridiculous waste of my time. It's like they give you the cliff notes for it instead of giving you nothing or just giving you a bunch of jargon. So I mean, sorry, go ahead.
When I'm just looking at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, looking at moral particularism.
Yes.
And I get moral particularism. Let's say moral particularism at its most trenchant is the claim that there are no defensible moral principles, that moral thought does not exist in the application of moral principles to cases, and that the morally perfect person should not be conceived as the person. This is clearly written. I can understand this.
Yeah.
But I'm no philosopher.
And it's a really interesting entry.
Yeah, it is, actually.
And honestly, I'm very sympathetic to moral particularism, but we don't have time to talk about that right now.
Well, moral principles are at best crutches that a morally sensitive person would not require. And indeed, the use of such crutches might even lead us into moral error.
So it throws back to Kant, but it's not stupid because it's
the particularist opponent. Your opponent is the generalist. Ethical generalism is the view. I really like the way this is written.
It is.
That
it's
the
good.
rationality of moral thought and judgment depends on a suitable provision of moral principles. Yeah.
So Stanford may not know how to treat their guest speakers, but at least they know how to write a damn encyclopedia of philosophy.
Or this has not been re-engineered by the Department of Political Correctness yet.
Yeah, it doesn't mention white supremacy yet, so clearly they just haven't gotten around to toppling that particular statue.
Huh.
Yeah, I've been thinking about making a meme. Is Assassin still with us? Maybe? I don't know. It's hard to say. If Assassin's still with us, I was thinking of a perfect meme, you know, sort of like the Drake meme where one thing you don't like and then the next thing you do like. So we could have like the Wojak guy, and looking over to the right, he sees like some sort of Tibetan monument or some sort of thing in Iran being toppled by religious extremists. And he makes the outraged face, you know, but then when they're toppling all of the statues here and all the other sort of stuff, you know, he makes the please soy face. Because to my mind, all these extremists who want to erase previous culture are all pretty much cut from the same cloth. I have no patience for these kind of people. Again, it's just the death of nuance. We can't have the past hanging around. Yeah, the past is just inconvenient. We should just get rid of it.
Absolutely. Or rewrite it.
Or rewrite it to suit our needs.
That guy who is the admin assistant for Jesse Smollett was explaining that belief is a choice, and that people who are not racist will choose to believe Jesse Smollett, and that he is telling the truth, and that racists will not, and that is the way it is, and that is a black man. He's making that statement.
And female Viking warriors were just as strong and fearsome as the male Viking warriors.
Usually more so.
More so,
usually
yeah.
Much stronger, and much more manly. They're even better men. Women are even better at being men than men are. They're so good. Women are better. Let's face it.
Well, I mean, except that men seem to be making some really big inroads into female achievement.
Those aren't men anymore.
I mean, the idea that you can be a woman for less than an entire year and win Woman of the Year is just like, that is so stunning and so brave. I know it's just like, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
The guys who are setting new records in the weightlifting, it's just amazing. You know, suddenly the women's numbers are almost as high as the men's numbers.
You don't know what it's like living in California and dealing with smart, decent, well-educated people who say ridiculous things.
Things like
this happens to me all the damn time.
I know.
You know, I've had smart people tell me that there's no biological difference between men and women. I kid you
Right.
not.
Yeah. And that
And
same person can work a multivariate calculus problem that would curl your hair.
And I just want to say, look, I don't want to argue with your Twitter feed. I don't want to indirectly get into a fight with the people that you read on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just stupid because these are like good, decent people, and it's really stressful. I mean, the biggest reason to leave California, short of having to pay a reparations tax, is just to not be constantly stressed out about every single thing I say.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. I'll hear somebody, I'll be talking to somebody, another nice person, good manager, good customer, and they'll say, well, that's just something they say on Fox News. And the most brazen thing I can say is, well, I don't only look at Fox News, but there's things that CNN doesn't cover. So I try to sample from a broad selection of news sources.
That's
that's just sort of like just the tip.
But when you say that you watch Fox News,
just
there are
sample.
intelligent people. There are intelligent people, and one of them is a dear friend of mine, who is a very impressive individual, career, very impressive career. One of the most intelligent people I've ever known, and he'll sit and say that kind of thing to me. Watching Fox News is just for a bunch of Republican MAGA types, and that isn't true. You really do have to have multiple sources for news, and it's not just CNN and Fox. You need a variety of, I think you need a variety of news reaction things, because you find out the most interesting things from just something that somebody might say offhand. I'm watching like Breaking Points and Rising, and I watch Fox and CNN. I just don't watch MSNBC. It's so laden with crap. I can get a watered down version of that at CNN. But I look in a lot of different places for my news. I even check the Wire reports. You finding some of the Wire service reports, even of significant things, are being ignored by certain news corporations.
Well, how long have I been hosting a show? I don't remember. I don't even know. It's like 2 years plus,
like 2
probably,
years.
right? I've been doing this, and every Saturday night, I show up with 20 or so topics.
Yep.
Right. Which means I have to pour over news from all over. I don't actually consider myself to be a Fox News viewer. I like I like the libertarians on Fox News. I will watch clips from Gutfeld because it amuses me. And I will typically listen to them on my built-in stereo thing on my headset when I'm driving around on my motorcycle, because the time it takes for me to get to the office, back to my bed, is about one Gutfeld clip. Okay, sue me. It's fine. That's how long it takes me. So I'll do that. And if Jonathan Turley's on, I don't even care what channel he's on. Everything Jonathan Turley says, I want to be privy to, because that's a smart guy who knows what he's talking about.
Yep. Yeah.
Again, not endorsing every single thing he's ever said, but Jonathan Turley is one of the few talking heads that's worth listening to.
Yeah.
Because he's not a complete asshat.
I think he'd be hard pressed to find anything that he said that you just hated. He really is reasonable, and he seems to think before he speaks. Yeah,
Turley's really good, and the other Jonathan Haidt, is also really interesting.
Jonathan Haidt is one of my favorites. Yeah.
So, I don't really consider myself to be a Fox News viewer. I mean, I don't come home, turn on the TV, and just leave Fox News playing in the background. There's things on Fox News I watch. I watch just as much stuff and read. I mean, in terms of my total news input, Fox is 10% maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a whole lot, but I mean, there are definitely people I know that if I just said anything, it'd be a problem. I mean, I keep my mouth shut most of the time. There was one time I dared to wear a little American flag pin. I wore it to work, and I shouldn't have done it because I know it's provocative in California. You're not supposed to do that, but it was a holiday. It was a national holiday. I wore an American flag pin.
What?
And this guy, I know,
You
this guy
bastard.
said to me, and he's a nice guy, really nice guy. He said something about, oh yeah, what's going on with that? Are you like a MAGA person or something? No, not really. It's a holiday and I'm kind of flying flag. And the guy said, oh yeah, it's important to be civically active. I took my kid to a rally about guns the other day. Took my daughter. And we went to the rally, and I said,
gun safety.
I said, well, that's good. You used your First Amendment right to argue against somebody else's Second Amendment right.
Oh, okay.
That's like the edgiest thing. That's the edgiest thing I've ever said to like somebody who's like a friend / customer.
Mm-hmm.
I really have to walk the line.
Yeah. Well, no, you almost can't have.
I shouldn't have even said that.
You shouldn't have.
I shouldn't have even said that. But I mean, it was a situation where I knew. Okay, I knew the guy. I'd known him for like almost 20 years, and I knew he wasn't going to just write me off because of one comment. I just try to explain to people. I just try to say to people, it's like, don't start picking and choosing which rights you want to have go away.
No, that's right.
I don't want a constitutional convention. I don't want any part of it. I don't trust you people to touch it. Even if you don't like parts of the Constitution, just leave it the hell alone. I don't trust this current generation to have anything to do. Just leave it. Lockbox it. But for real, like, just don't touch it. I don't trust you asshats to do anything.
Yep.
Or no talent ass clowns. I said asshat once before, so.
I wonder if they'll get Biden to sign over the United States to China before he leaves office.
Speaking of no talent ass clowns.
No,
yeah, I mean, it just makes me apoplectic thinking about how bad these people are. It makes it hard to talk.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah, but focus on the important things. Make better pizza. Learn to make bread. I might actually try my hand at doing a little home brewing just for fun, because it's just something I've never done before. I know that making sourdough bread and home brewing at the same time is pathologically stupid, but I'm dumb and I'm stubborn and I just don't care. So I'll just try it and then I'll probably fail. I'll either end up with bread that tastes like beer or beer that tastes like bread.
What I have found is that I made beer fairly seriously for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not very hard to make decent beer. Beer's not hard to make. It's just not hard. It's not hard to make acceptable beer. It just, any of the online recipes will generate a perfectly acceptable beer. And then you can vary it, if you want it hoppy, or you want it, want a little bit more sour. There's all kinds of things you can put in it.
Well, what's that prison swill called? Not Pruno, but there's some sort of swill they make in prison.
Talking about toilet beer?
Well, it's like, there's another name for it. And when the IRS shows up to take me away because of wrong think,
right,
I probably should know enough to know how to take raisins from the commissary and turn them into something to drink, because I'll need to numb the pain as I'm in prison. Being somebody's date for wrong think.
That's the thing. People don't realize it, but if you take like a glass of V8 juice, V8 juice is a great one to do this with, because there's a lot of vegetable material in it.
There's a lot of protein in it. You start fermenting stuff with protein in it. That's nasty, dude.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they polish rice before they make sake. But go on.
That's a good point. Yeah, but that's exactly right too. But it's you will develop well over 1% alcohol in that, just leaving it out 3 or 4 days in your refrigerator uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
It just on its own, it will begin to ferment. And there are all kinds of fruit juices that will ferment, and that they actually used to caution alcoholics who were first coming into the program. They said don't keep any old fruit juice as it starts to ferment, and there's almost a it's a fetish of AA where people there is a class of alcoholic, and some of these people are very successful in their recovery. So I have nothing bad to say about them, but they believe that all alcohol must be avoided, even have it touch your skin, even other forms of alcohol like phenol and methanol. They think if it touches them that they will lose their sobriety, and that was a thing in AA, a little bit of AA mysticism from the 40s there.
But it's the whole thing about well, what's the best revenge? Living well, right?
Living well, absolutely.
You can't argue with people who are happier than you. You can't argue with people who live well. You can't argue with working code, right? It's just, the point is that things that work, that are demonstrably good, there's no way to win an argument better than implementing what you're saying and then succeeding. Now, sometimes people succeed by accident. Sometimes it's just fate. There's a lot of different reasons. Sometimes people work really hard and have the right ideas at the right time and they fail anyway. The world doesn't really particularly care about you. And sometimes it just says, screw you.
Being fair.
Yeah.
The world is just incompetent at being fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that aside, but if you want to prove your point, being successful by whatever metrics is the best way to go about doing it. If you want to, I mean, that's just broadly true in a lot of ways.
That's true.
In terms of education, for instance, right? That's what I sort of liked about having 50 different states with 50 departments of education, because we actually had an opportunity to have 50 different incubators. But what was it? It was George Bush, wasn't it, that came in and did this No Child Left Behind thing that set us on the current trajectory of mediocrity. Sorry, I'm getting very tired.
Take this Department of Education and give it some teeth.
Yeah,
let's make this thing go.
Let's dismantle.
Did he ever do that?
Let's dismantle huge swaths of the federal government.
Yeah, we're going to have standardization all across the country. Everybody's going to get exactly the same curriculum.
Yeah, and we'll teach to the test. That'll be great.
What could possibly go wrong? I mean, if they do well on the test, they must know the stuff, right?
Yeah, in the annals of Be Careful What You Wish For, 100 years from now, they're going to look back on this as the Great Dumbing.
Yeah, the Great
Dumbing. It's not even these kids' fault.
That's the truth.
Not everybody can be a highly motivated autodidact.
or even an unmotivated didact like me. Autodidact like me.
I went to a lot of very mediocre schools growing up, but I was the kid that would get the textbooks and then read them over the summer, so I already knew all the material before I'd hit there. And it was just because that's just the way I'm wired.
Yep.
Most kids don't do that. I admit I'm the weird one here. I'm not claiming the world should be more like me. If anything, I should unclench. I'll probably die a lot happier. But at least with the Bowflex, I'll leave a good-looking corpse. That's the important thing.
You'll leave a formerly knowledgeable one.
Yeah.
Why
doesn't matter.
Why do we do all this?
Are we still showing pictures of my pizza? This is probably confusing to people.
Yeah, but it's a good pizza. But anyway, you're on the ending screen, and we should end here. We've been going for 2.5 hours. And I think we can probably just do it. Sure. Yeah, sir. You've never served. Lying little shit. You bullshit. Sure. Fuck you.
Good night, everybody.
The zoo is closed. Thanks for coming out. Good night, everybody.
Bye.